Okay, in the first lesson, we talked about how to launch a Lightsail instance. We launched an instance that we called my first Lightsail, which I still left here. So for this tutorial, we're going to look at how to launch containers. So basically, Lightsail containers are like a serverless container service that allows you to deploy containers in Lightsail. So you can actually bring in your containers that you built yourself, or you can actually bring in public containers. So how do you launch containers and how does it work in Lightsail? So first of all, we click on create container instance, and just like for the instances, like the virtual machines, it basically asks you for the region. So we're just going to skip that, and then you are taken straight forward to choose the container service capacity you want to use. So you have different instance capacities, and then you have the prices. So just like the instances provide for you, you have to choose the cost that you want based on the resources that is allocated to that. So you have $7, you have $10, you have $15, until $160, which is about 8 gigs of RAM and 4 vCPUs. Now, if you notice, no storage here because containers are basically designed to be stateless. So you need to take note of that your containers do not store data within itself, because there's little or no storage to be able to handle a lot of data. And then you have choose scale. So this means how many number of containers do you want to run at a time. Now this can be very helpful in terms of high availability, so you don't have a single point of failure for your containers that are running in Lightsail. So Lightsail supports this out of the box, so you can have 2 instances, 3 instances, down up to 20 container replicas. So you can have replicas of your containers, all handling and serving traffic automatically and request load balancing across all the replicas of the containers you have. For this sample, I'm just gonna go with 1. Okay, just 1 for the scale. And then it's saying that my container service is going to cost me $7 a month, and you can see that your container includes the data transfer of 500 gig a month. It wasn't showed here, but it's good we are getting that information. Data transfer in excess of the quota will result in an overage charge that varies by AWS region and starts at 0.09. So this practically means that you have a cap of 500 gig of transfer for the month, and if you go beyond that, AWS will start charging you at 0.09 cents, 9 cents basically per gigabyte of data transfer. Okay, now let's set up our first deployment. So I'm just going to use one of the sample images they have here. So you have Nginx, you have Redis, and then you have Hello World. So I'm going to go with Nginx, but if you want to specify your own deployment, it's good you just click on specify deployment. You fill in the container name. You paste the image here. So the image could come from internal or from external. It could be a private image or a public image. And then if there's a launch command, you also put that here. So if there are any other containers, if you want to launch multiple containers, you can add up to 10 containers in a deployment. So we're just going to go with 1 container, and I'm going to go with the example. Okay. And then there's also information here about what do we want to call our container. We can call it Nginx sample. Okay, and this is the URL is going to generate for us. So the URL is going to be a combination of the name, a random ID that you generate, and all this, which are basically from Lightsail. Okay, so your container service will cost you $7 a month, and it may take a few minutes for container service to be available. So if we're sure we are done with all this, it's going to expose port 80. More details here explaining to us things around health check, just to make sure that the service is working appropriately. So if we're done with that, next thing we do is to create the container instance. So just like the server instance is going to take a while, so I'm just going to pause the video and we'll come back when this is done. Okay, at this point our deployment is ready, and this is our URL. So if we click on this, it's just going to take us straight to Nginx. So we can see the Nginx we deployed is running with the URL. So basically we want to explore the container configuration. So we have the deployment which we just made, and you also have logs too. So if you open this, it's going to give us the logs for the container that is running. And then you have the deployment version. So for every new deployment, is going to add to this list, so you know the deployments that have been made. You can modify and redeploy or show details about the deployment basically. Then you have the capacity, which is obviously something we did initially. So your container instance will cost $7. I mean, AWS is making sure they show you that the price is pretty clear. You're not paying more than $7 a month, except of course the data transfer exceeds 500 gig for a nano instance type. And you can see here you have the option of changing capacity. It said change your container service capacity. Updates to your container will be temporarily unavailable while the capacity change is applied. There will be no downtime for your container service. So this means that you can actually scale up or scale down without downtime. Pretty cool. So you have images here. So you can create container images in your local machine and push them to Lightsail account to deploy them. So the steps you need to follow. And then for private images, so this is the instruction of how to configure private images from ECR. So if you don't want your images to be public, obviously for security reasons, you can configure Lightsail to pull images from your private ECR registry. And then you have custom domains. So this is pretty important because this is obviously not this is not the kind of URL that you're going to be sharing with users and with customers, obviously. So you need to create a custom domain. So these are the steps to register. So you need to have a domain registered. You need to create a certificate in Lightsail. You need to attach certificate and then configure your DNS. So click on I understand and continue. You need to, the default domain for the service is this. Default domain does not change. It's a TLS associated service. So they're practically telling you the things you need to do, things you need to follow. Create a certificate. Just follow the steps. It's going to create a custom domain. So whatever domain name you choose to use for yourself, you can attach that and point it to this URL. And instead of giving this long URL to users, you can just give them something pretty simple, johnson.com, tulu.com, something that points, that is easier for a user to understand and read. And then you have the metrics, which is pretty much important to know what's going on. You have CPU utilization, you have memory utilization, just as straightforward as it is for the instances. So that's basically all about the container instances. Thank you very much for watching. See you in the next video.